So there was a Zen master that everyone respected, but he never offered any teaching. He would simply walk around with a stick with a sack attached to it. And in that sack, he carried a bunch of sweets and a lot of stuff. And every time he would go to a town, he would take his sack off and he would share the sweets with the children, but he would never offer any teaching to anyone. And so there was another Zen master who found this very irritating, and he decided he needed to test him. So he calls him over and he says, "What is Zen?" And the man drops his pack and he stands up straight. And then the other Zen master says to him, "What is the goal of Zen?" And he picks up his sack, he slings it over his shoulder, and he walks away. And so that's really what our spiritual practice is about. It's about letting go of everything and being able to let go of our sack, if you will. But then if we choose to pick it up again, that we don't feel that we're carrying a load anymore. It gives us a different way of moving through life. And Ram Dass tells us that the game of awakening is subtle. We assume our thoughts are reality with a capital R, right? But suffering is just a set of thoughts, right? Suffering is thoughts. And a lot of the spiritual path is about setting down our suffering so that we can move through the things that happen in our life but not suffer. And we can get caught up in semantics, right? Like, what does it mean to awaken? What does it mean to be enlightened? What does it mean to be conscious? And so let's talk about what awareness is not, right? What is awareness not? Awareness is not mental alertness. Like, we can think that if we're mentally alert that we're awake, but our mental alertness really is given to us to protect us in life, to keep us safe. Sadhguru says, awareness is not something you do. Awareness is something which you are. Awareness is your very aliveness, your very beingness itself. And when we're aware, right, we're inclusive. We embrace everyone. We embrace everything. We might say we practice our oneness. That's a word that we use here. But to be aware or awake, whatever word we choose to use, we have to set the right conditions in our life. And how do we set these conditions in our life? It is through our practice, and it's through also preparing our body, our thought, our emotions, so that we can step in with sort of aligned energy. When we do that, then our awareness or awakeness, whatever word we want to use, is going to blossom. And how do we know that that's what's happening, right? How do you know you're becoming more awake, more aware? You know, sometimes it's through kind of extreme experiences, right? You hear stories about people who have like, you know, a very extreme experience. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it might just be like, I'm meditating and I feel something larger than myself, or I'm praying or someone's praying for me and I feel the energy expand out beyond myself. I remember the first time I felt that I was at Machu Picchu, and I was kind of new on the alternative path. I didn't meditate, but I did sign up to go on a trip with Wayne Dyer, who is a very quiet person, by the way, and he barely taught the whole time we were there. But there were lots of other wonderful people on the trip, and so they would take us out, you're on this beautiful mountain, and we would meditate. And that was the first time I ever felt the energy beyond myself. And I would say I kind of felt like I lifted out of my body. I had no idea what I was doing, but that was the first time I was aware of it. And spiritual places can help us, right? Because the energy, they say, a lot of these places were chosen because the energy moves upward. We just came back from Mexico and we went to a couple of sacred sites. And one of our guides, Oscar, said, you know, it's the weirdest thing at the highest point here, a place called Monte Alban, which was one of their ancient sites down near Oaxaca. He said, compasses don't work. when you get to the highest place. And they were very related to the directions, right, in the ancient paths. But he said they don't work. And that makes perfect sense to me because the energy moves up. Something about the site, the energy moves up, and that's why these places were chosen. It also happens when we gather together. Have you ever noticed that when you're meditating with other people, you can really feel things differently? It also happens through music. The beautiful music that they just shared, I Am Light. It happens through music too. You can begin to feel something that is bigger than yourself. And what exactly is happening when you're experiencing this? So I'm going to talk for a second about the 5 elements. We don't talk about that a lot. But water, fire, earth, air, and ether. The first 4 of those elements exist within each of us. But the ether is actually outside of us. And each person has what is called an Akashic field, which is about 18 to 21 inches around you. It's an energy field. Some teachers teach, like Amit Goswami, who was in What the Bleep, who's a physicist who became a spiritual dude. Interesting. But he believes that even the intelligence of your body is in this Akashic field, that the organs, that is how your body knows how to work. And so when we pray, we love to talk about healing, right? When we pray, we are actually praying in that field. We're not praying in our physical and mental body. We're praying in that field. We're putting the energy out there. That's actually where healing happens. And so that is why it is so important for us to gain awareness. Because when we practice, we tap into that field. And what keeps us from that field is all our humanness, right? Our compulsions, our concerns, our intellect. But that field is really beyond our intellect. It's beyond our identity. And when you experience that sense of timelessness, has anyone ever experienced it? I'm sure you have. You're here. When you experience that sense of timelessness, there's a great sense of peace. It's like you're tapped into the intelligence of life itself. And it's only us humans, by the way, who need to figure everything out. Like in nature, things just sort of work themselves out because there's a greater intelligence working here. So we're going to do some practice together in a little while, but I want to talk about a few different ways, or a few different kinds of ways to think about things to help you to deepen in your awareness. The first one is what Rob read to us. Enlightenment is not an attainment or an achievement, it's a homecoming. So it's already in you, right? You're not separate from it. We've been taught by conventional religion that things are outside of us, but the truth is it's in you. You can't be separate from it. And that's why we're on this path. And our senses make us think we're experiencing the outside, right? Even things like love, we think, or we touch someone, we think we're experiencing the outside, but where are you experiencing it? You're experiencing it inside of you, right? So we're never really having an experience on the outside. We just think we are. And so when we have this homecoming that Rob read to us about, that's enlightenment. But what keeps us from enlightenment is our mental constructs, right? Good, bad, all the ways we define life. That's what keeps us from that. And when we buy into these constructs of the world, right, it fractures our own sense of oneness. It can build our own sense of separation, right? We've been told that who we are is about the outside, but that's not the truth. Right? Our true happiness, our true sense of well-being, it is within each and every one of you. That's where it is. I was thinking about how thought fractures us, right? Garden of Eden. What was that story about? They ate from the tree of life, right? The tree of knowledge. And then they realized their separation, right? They were separate. But what were they really doing? They were thinking. When they started thinking, they became separated from their spirit. I think that's what that story is really about. But the truth of who we are is that we are part of a borderless unity. We often call that oneness here, right? And like science actually proves this now, that everything is connected. We don't live like everything's connected, but everything is connected. And even love, I want to talk about love for a second. You know, love is a phenomenon that happens within you. We can think that love is something that is happening on the outside, but love is a phenomenon that's happening within you. And Ernest Holmes talked about love and law, and I've said this before. At the end of his life, he said he wished he had spent more time on the love. And when I think about that, I think about, you know, what is that love? It's this nature that we're part of. It's this divine intelligence is the love. Like he spent a lot of time on the what's in your thought part of this teaching instead of this nature of God. And so we want to cultivate this nature within ourselves. And how do we do that? We do that through our practice. But all of this requires us to step into a place of curiosity and not knowing, which is really hard for us. We've been taught that the intellect is the supreme power, right? But we want to step into just trusting and not knowing. And I know that can be very difficult, especially if you look at what's happening in the world. Like you start reading about these poor people who lost their homes in the hurricane and stuff. And you can say, where's that higher intelligence of that? And the truth is, we're never going to know. We're never going to know what the higher intelligence that's happening in any of these things. But we know when we turn back within, that then we can experience peace within ourselves, and we can then be in a more loving place within ourselves, to be available to other people because we're at peace within ourselves. And that's why we do our practice. It's not that we pretend it's not happening in the world of form. It's that we're reminding ourselves of our true nature, and then we can move from that place. Ram Dass says one of the benefits of meditation is that we begin to be rooted in a space of awareness. He calls it practicing quietness. And what happens when we practice quietness? We can pull back from our own life. We can simply observe our life. It's our story, it's our movie that's happening, but we become less attached to what's happening when we separate, you know, when we draw back from it. And we can let go of the labels of knowing what it means, even. We can just observe what's happening. And I've been really working with this idea of how uncomfortable we are with discomfort, right? We're so uncomfortable with discomfort. At least I'm noticing how uncomfortable I am with discomfort. I mean, even silly things like Rich doesn't have global entry, so we had to wait in the big long line. And I noticed in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm so resistant. How uncomfortable is this? It's midnight. No one's at the airport. This is fine. But like, that's just my own mind wanting everything to be convenient and comfortable all the time. But if you think about what are we really longing for, we think we're longing for the stuff on the outside, like ease, abundance, the job, the relationship, whatever. But we're actually longing for this allness, to really feel like we are part of this. We're part of this bigger thing, this bigger connection. And when we're feeling that, we're not worried about what's happening on the outside. We're not experiencing separation. We're feeling at peace. So one of the other ideas I want to give to everyone is just this idea that your mind is the servant of your spirit, not the other way around. You know, we grew up in a belief system in the Western world. I think, therefore I am. That is backwards. I am, therefore I think, is actually the truth. I am, I'm here, I'm a being, right? A spiritual being, and I've been given the ability to think. But the ability to think is not my spirit. If you think about Eastern religions, so many things that focus on the chakras and stuff like that, right? It's very much focused on being in a different place in your body, like your soul, your spirit. We think of the heart or the solar plexus. That's the center of intelligence, right? It's not up here, but we think it's up here. And when we're not experiencing well-being, what's happened? We've let our thoughts kind of go haywire, right? And we're allowing the outside world, not our inside world, to drive the car of our life. And we all do it, right? Because we're human. But we want to let go of the idea that an external situation is the key to any happiness in our life. We really want to let go of that idea. You know, and we're so, you know, even in our teaching, we're so focused on, you know, first we want to start, I'm not a victim, right? Things are not happening to me, right? We can really move into by me, like I'm doing it, I'm making it happen, you know, I'm putting my word out there and it's coming into form. And that's just a place on the journey. We don't want to stay there. We want to move into like, okay, whatever this higher intelligence is, whatever you call it, Ernest Holmes called it, it's happening through me and it's actually happening as me. That's the spiritual truth. You're never separate from it. You're never separate from this intelligence. So when we do our spiritual practice, we're trying to create a distinction between our mind and ourselves. You are not your mind. That's not who you are. You are your spirit. You are this eternal part of yourself. That is who you really are. And that is what we remind ourselves when we practice. And a human being who has transcended their mind is a Buddha. So Gautama Buddha, that he transcended his mind. But there have been many other Buddhas throughout time. They're just not as famous as him. There's people walking on the planet today who have transcended their mind. And when that happened for him, he was literally, he had tried everything. You know, he was an ascetic, he went around begging, he did everything. And then he sat down under a tree. And that's when it happened, when he stopped efforting. And that's the invitation in your practice. It's not about effort, it's about allowing it to happen. Because if you're doing your practice, it will happen. And one thing you might want to try at home is just to sit quietly for an hour and notice what thoughts arise in that hour. Don't do a mantra or anything else. Don't listen to music. Don't look at your iPhone for sure. But just sit quietly for an hour and notice what comes up for you. That's going to tell you where your focus is in your life. And don't judge it. Just notice it, because then you can overcome it. You know, because we have the ability to respond in our lives. And when we take responsibility for our lives, then we respond instead of reacting. We stop being victims of circumstances and we move into action. It doesn't mean that everything that happens is lovely. It's not. You know, that's one of the things I love about the Mexican people. You know, we had these great guides, local people, and one of them said, I know you're going to think we're weird, but like on the Day of the Dead, we actually go and we go to the cemetery and we have a party. And he's like, because for us, death is not different. It's just a continuation of life. And that's really a beautiful thought, because that's actually what we believe too. But we spend so much time fearing death and illness as a culture because we want to be comfortable. There's a story about Aristotle walking on the beach, and if you know anything about Aristotle, he was a pretty serious guy. He didn't laugh a lot because he was trying to figure out the universe. And he's walking on the beach, and it's a beautiful day. And finally, there's this guy who gets his attention. And this man has dug a really tiny hole in the sand, and he's got a tablespoon, and he's running out to the ocean, and he's filling up his tablespoon, and he's coming back, and he's putting it in the water. And Aristotle's like, "What are you doing?" And the man says, "I'm trying to, fill this hole, fill the whole ocean into this hole." And Aristotle says, "That's madness." And the guy says, "Leave me alone, I'm busy, this is important work." And Aristotle could not let it be. He's like, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm emptying the ocean into this hole." And Aristotle says, "You have to stop. This is madness. This is insanity. You must stop." And the guy throws down his spoon and he said, "My work is done. You are trying to put all the wonder of the entire universe into a little hole with it, which is your head. And that is madness. You have to stop." I love that story. So we want to stop trying to empty the whole universe into our little head. That other man, by the way, was Heraclitus, who is a very famous Greek philosopher. And it is said that Aristotle had an awakening because of that. So the invitation for us is to, stop extending logic to every aspect of our life. Right? The spiritual path is not about logic. Early in our seeking, we might be trying to figure out, like, why is it this way? What's the right way? There isn't a right way. Actually, Ram Dass says that in his book, Journey of Awakening. It's whatever path that you are on, that is the right way. And we just want to work together to move beyond our thoughts so that we're really available to spirit. And we do that through our practice, and that's the challenge and the invitation this month. We have a lot of opportunities for you to, next Sunday, Reverend Darrell, I'm sure he's going to be talking a lot about meditation. It's his thing after service. We've got 7 spiritual laws. I couldn't even think of the name of the class. And we're going to do a lot. I studied at the Chopra Center. We're going to do a lot with the chakras and with some chanting and some other things like that, just as an experience of something different. But I invite you, even if you can't do either of those things, do something at home. Try something new. There's so much out on Insight Meditation Timer and so many other places where you can try some different things, but just mix it up a little bit in your practice. And just allow yourself to be open to something new, because we can get in the same habits in our practice that we get into in the rest of our life, and that's the habit of going to sleep, right? We can go to sleep in it. So that's my invitation, is for you to mix it up. We're actually going to close with a little bit of practice together. So I'm carefully going to move this stool over, and Tiffany is going to come back and sing with me, maybe Greg too. Maybe others, I don't know. But when we practice too, it can also be really helpful to do something to prepare yourself to practice. You want to make your body comfortable, and at first we can be really fidgety. I can't put my feet on the ground here, but I invite everyone to put your feet on the ground right now, and to put your palms up, because actually it helps you to breathe more fully when you put your palms up. And I'm going to invite you to take 3 deep breaths with me in a moment. But one of the benefits of meditating, and something that can help you in your awakening, is to just slow your breathing down. Take less breaths each minute. So let's breathe in together and breathe out together. Breathing in together and breathing out. Breathing in together and breathing out. just bring your awareness to your forehead, to your third eye. And just imagine light coming out from your forehead and the top of your head, and just expanding out into this room. Let's just sit in that together while Tiffany sings for us. From this place of expanded awareness of the light that is the truth of your being, just speak a word of gratitude for our time together, connecting in community. Just knowing that as we turn within together, that there is a greater sense of love and connection that is happening here. And I know that we take this sense of connection out into the week, that it is the truth of our being, and that we have a deeper and deeper awareness of this truth, that we are light, that we are always and everywhere connected to Spirit. I just know that this is the truth, and I say yes to this on all our behalf. Just grateful to know this. Grateful to know that always and everywhere all is already well. Grateful to know that this prayer is fulfilled. I simply say, and so it is.
And so